Welcome to Watercolor. Today we're going to go into the woods like Little Red Riding Hood or something, but I just envisioned up in Maine, an island like this, and this is what we're painting. We're also painting this after we're gonna do a cut of a log, which I think will be really fun to do. Just takes a minute, it's not hard at all. So that's a good exercise, and that's why you have two pieces of paper. So first of all, we're going to start with our big one. We want you to tape down your paper, and I'm going to switch the camera so you can see. So let me just explain really quickly about our color scheme. We've got this little tub of colors, and there's probably 2 blues and 2 greens in here. And you can touch them with water. Ruth told me to be careful when you touch the black, which is in the lid, by the way, for most everybody. It is really intense. So we're gonna wet the whole sky from this line. We're gonna go all the way across and up, and that's gonna be wet first, okay? And then we're going to take our true blue, probably a cerulean blue or an ultramarine blue, and just, what you do is you add color at the top and you keep adding water as you go down, and it gets hazier and hazier, okay? If that's a word. But then you'll notice that the bottom half is a little more sea green and teal. So that's where you want to use your aqua or your Prussian blue or your blue green. Those are just kind of things that it's kind of reflected in the water. So it's picking up the watercolor plus the green of the reflection. So we're gonna get more of a blue-green down here than the true blue of the sky. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to be using the brushes that came in the kit. If you've got your regular big brushes, feel free to use them. You'll just be faster than us. We're going to just wet this down. It's not to the middle, it is to maybe 2/3 of the way down. We want to make sure it's really wet. So I'm using my blue brush, kind of as a scrub brush. And I'm filling it all in with water. You may want to have a scrap piece of paper next to you. It could be any kind of paper, it doesn't have to be watercolor paper, to test out your colors in your kit. Since they are not marked, I don't want you dipping into something and putting it on your paper and not be able to lift it. So I want you to be able to test your colors, even if it's on a piece of paper towel. Oops, another person. We'll get these people in. Okay. Another one. Okay, so I'm going to look for just a plain blue in my pan. And I'm just going to start across the top. And I'll be adding water as I go. I want to keep it wet, keep all the edges fluid. There's no clouds in this. It's just plain sky that gets, as it recedes in the background, it gets, almost to white, to plain colors. So I want to get rid of this stripe. I want it all to blend. And to do that, usually you have your top part the darkest, and then you come down and it gets lighter and lighter. And right now I don't have any color on my brush. I'm just bringing down color from the paper. Just bringing water and color. It's a nice summer day in this picture with no clouds in the sky. We want to go all the way across in one stroke. And don't stop in the middle. Make sure you go below center. Okay. Already my paper's buckling, but that'll be fine. Okay, while this is still wet, we're going to drop in our background mountains. And I don't know if you can see in here in this picture, but they are right here. So they're gray and they are right here. So they just go along right there. Barely see them. So I'm just adding just a touch of black. And that is very concentrated black. And I'm just going to go across. These are the background. See, oh gosh, that black is intense. Ooh, baby. Well, I may have closer mountains than you guys. Okay. Okay, we don't want this to dry. We're still gonna have our line down here. And we're gonna add green now. It doesn't really matter what green. Actually, that's a little light for me. I'm gonna take a little black, a little bit of green. And one of these colors is fraying on me. I don't know if that's the paper that's shedding or the paint. I might have just stroked it too much. Okay, we want it to bleed up. We're not going to touch it. And because it's wet up above, it's just going to continue to creep up. Okay? Then I'm going to come back in. I'm going to make a puddle of a green. This green is good, but it needs to have a little black in it. Okay, so then I'm just going to go right on the edge. This is the shoreline. And I think mine's not straight. Okay, in a perfect world, guys, you want the same, water is always level. And so you want the same, you want the shoreline the same on both sides. So to do that, all you have to do, let me just show you, is you're gonna take the measurement of your shoreline over here on your paintbrush, and you're gonna match it over here. And I can see I need to come one stroke down to make mine even. So I'm gonna, there. See, even that feels better to me. Okay. So along this shoreline, you look, we've got these little background trees. We're gonna start with those. And you're gonna use just your green. And I may even add a little black to that. Let me zoom in so you guys can see better. We want it to kind of go up into the wet up above. I'm going to help it a little. On this side, it comes in at the shoreline there. And then we've got our island in the middle. Okay, so this is where we're doing some background colors while this is still wet. I'm filling it in with some darker in the foreground here of the island. Like that. Now this is all background. This is not, don't be painting any fir trees or anything right now. It's just color that we're laying down. I'm taking some yellow. You can see in the picture, there's yellow right there. And I'm going to be doing that on here. This is a focal point. It draws our eye to this area. See how that just kind of blends in? This paint, I don't know if it's the brush or the paint, but I've got all these little flecks. Huh. Interesting. Okay. And you could go back. You could go back along here and go a little darker. Now that it's drying, you can see that it needs to be darker. It's the foreground. This is still on top of the rocks. Great, okay, we're gonna let that dry a little bit. I'm gonna set down my blue brush and I'm gonna pick up my biggest of the black brushes. And we're gonna be working on the rocks now. Okay, so this is kind of, rocks are tricky. Rocks are really tricky. So what I did is, we're going to be painting this dark black line that's the shadow or the bottom of the rocks. In order to do that, we have to leave a white space in between. So this is going to be white for a while. So leave a space between the bottom of your island and where you put your black, and you're just going to do some scoop with your black, okay? And you also, okay, well, let's just do that far. It's just pure black. Don't worry if it's not black enough, because we'll go back over it. We'll go back over it in a minute with some other. We're going to draw some of it, and we'll be doing a lot of top coats on top of this. So if it's not dark enough, it's fine. And there's really no rhyme. You don't have to be particular just about it. Just know that you've got to leave this area of white. Okay. I'm going to move that up. Okay, so here's where the magic comes in, guys. okay? I'm going to take my brush, it's got this full black on, and I'm just going to dip it in water one time, but not rinse it off. Then I'm going to go like this and just start bringing up that black. And think of rock shapes, how jaggedy or round they may be. We're not going all the way to the top because if you can see, the top has a lot of white. And so we're just drawing the sides of the rocks. I guess that would be a good explanation. Just, if you need more water, that's fine. You also can use a bristle brush. That looks, let me show you. If you were to have oh, maybe the blue brush should do that. Let me see. At this point, you probably could just draw it up with the black. Oh yeah, that kind of works. It gives it kind of a jaggedy look. Rocks are not perfect, but they also catch the light on the different faces of the rock. So if a rock were to be cut, then you would see different planes have different views. The top view would be white. Your side views would be light gray, unless one was on the opposite side of your light source. If my light source was over here, then one of the planes of the rocks would be really black on this back side. So that's what you have to pay attention to. Okay, so now we've done that with your blue brush. I'm going to rinse my little paintbrush out, and I just have water in it now. Okay, I'm just using plain water. Let me scoop. Can you guys see this big enough? I'm just going to, from those scrapes, I'm just going to go up with the water, and hopefully some of the black will go up and make it gray. Looks like it's not on mine. I must have left it too long. So I am taking just a bit of black. Oops. Test out your colors. We want a white line, a little white line underneath the trees, but before the rocks. So that's our highlight. And we're also going to have a little white line below. So we're going to start painting down here, but we're going to also leave a little white line. Okay, so let's get, I think that's too dark. Okay. So to do this the reflection, so now we're going to do a little white line that is like where the rocks are sitting, I guess sand, and then we're going to reflect those rocks in the water. So from here, I'm just going to do the opposite. Does that make sense, you guys? You following along? Leaving just a little white line. Okay. Again, I'm going to take my whiskey blue brush and see if I can blend some of that. Nope, not really. So that didn't blend very well. And so I'm just going to go back. I'm going to add a little bit of blue with this because it is in the water. So I want it to show that it is under the water. Okay. Cool. Okay. So from here, how are you guys doing, by the way? Pretty good? We'll go back and work on these rocks a little bit more with the shadows, identifying them and making them separate boulders. But right now, they're just drying as one. Okay, so you'll see that going into the reflection, actually, we're going to do the blue, all the water. So we're going to take our blue paintbrush or your biggest brush, and you're going to wet everything down. You're leaving a, oops, you can't see that. You're going to leave a little line on the shoreline on both sides, but the rest of it gets blue. And we're going to look for a blue-green or turquoise, just depends what you have in your palette. There's a good mixture, a couple, probably 3 different blues that I put in there that you can choose from. Right now I'm just wetting it all. Lots of water. And I'm going right into this rock too. That's fine. Because we're going to be putting the island in reflection. I didn't leave a lot of reflection room. Ooh, there goes that rock. I'm not too concerned about the bleeding on the rock. Okay. So I'm going to be taking just different blues. I'm looking for blue-green turquoises. Ooh, that's really dark. Wow. Some of this paint's very concentrated. That's like Caribbean color. That's a little too bright for this wooded scene. Okay. While this is wet, over on this right-hand side, I'm going to be doing the reflection of the green in here while it's still wet, because I want it to run together. So to do that, I get a dark green and just, that's really light. Let's see. It's too dark. Let's try this. Okay, we just want this to look like the hill. in reverse. So you're going to put some trees in there, so you can go ahead and put some straight lines down that show reflection of some trees. Okay. This is a good color to go around the base of these rocks. Because then it's the mountain, it's your island. And see, I didn't leave enough room. So hopefully you've got room to come around. You're going to do like a sea green through here. You're going to drop a little bit of yellow reflection and then the shadows of the trees. We're all going to do that before this dries. I'm going to drop a bit of yellow right in the middle of that reflection. Okay. And let that dry a little bit. Okay, while we wait for this bottom area to dry, we're going to move back over to the trees that are on the land. I'm going to take my smallest brush that I have, and I'm going to get a mixture of the dark green. Let me see if you guys can, am I big? Am I spotlighted? You guys can see me big, right? Let's see. Okay. I'm going to get a green, a black green, so it looks normal. Like, we don't want it fluorescent green, we want it pine green. That's the word I was looking for. We want a pine green color. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna start at the top and you just start laying down a line and then you start zigzagging it. And you go down all the way there, okay? And then you're going to do another one next to it, but this time it's going to be a little bit of a crooked one and it's going to be shorter. It's not going to be as tall as the last one. And then you're going to leave a big space. Actually, we're going to do some green shrubs in here, so you can just do some stamping or something to get that green down. And then leaving about an inch in between, you're going to go back up and do another tree. Just doing back and forth little motions. Okay, so I'm not putting in trunks on these. I'm not putting in individual leaves. These are just suggestions of pine trees, right? These don't have to be there. You know they're pine trees because of the shape of them, and that's all you have to know. You don't need to know what type, or you don't even have to see the trunks. I'm going along the shoreline, just making it a little bit darker. Okay. Same thing on this other side. I'm just going to go over on this side and do the same thing. I'm not doing any trees on this side. It's not balanced that way. But what I do want to do is put a base down of shrubs. Okay. You feel how wet it is. It's ready to go, I think. Okay, well, we've got this beautiful green on our brush. We're going to go do the big trees on the island. Okay, so I'm going to start. So I don't want you to put a tree right in the middle of the yellow. Okay, there's two trees and they're on either side of the yellow, if you can see that. So I'm going to take my big tree and I'm going to start way up in the sky. And I'm just going to start going back and forth. This one, you kind of have to give it a trunk, I mean, because you've got sparseness. You're not doing every little needle, but you are going down. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to go all the way to the bottom of the green. Okay. And from there, I can just continue to make trees. The branches are not uniform. They're not symmetrical. They don't match side to side. There will be some that have the branches coming towards you and they're around the back. And so they're going to be all shapes and things. So it doesn't really matter. What matters is they don't look identical. Please don't make them look identical. These branches are supposed to be different, each one. Make sure you have a dark enough pine that when it dries, you don't have to go over it again. I want you to use enough black in there to have a really true dark green. I really like painting fir trees. Maybe it's because lived in Oregon and these were in my backyard, but they are fun to do, I think. I think it's just really fun. Notice that this tree, the branches do not go to the bottom. Unlike our ones over here, this does not. What we are going to have is some dark bushes at the bottom that we will need to paint. So I think I'm about done with that tree. And to anchor it, because it looks like it's floating in the air right now. If you guys, I'm going to zoom in. Looks like it's floating in the air. So we need to give it some shrubbery and things that are crawling around it and up by it. So go ahead and dab some dark green around that to anchor it. Okay. And then we get to repeat. Now the one on the right has more space in between the branches. So it's either a younger tree or less healthy. It's going to go to the right of the yellow. I need to make up a little bit more green black. Remember, we want this dark because we don't want to go over it again. And it's not as high as the last one, so it's a little shorter. This one, the trunk's pretty important, so I'm going to go ahead and just draw that because it is all by itself in many places. This one stops short. It's not going to go as low as the other one. And then just go to town.
We can't see the top of the tree. Can you move it up where?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
No, I keep doing that. I'm just so bad about looking at that.
That's okay. Thank you.
Yes. It's almost like this one had, like it was trimmed to be like this, spacing in between. You guys ever heard of widowmaker branches? Pine trees are really known for dropping their branches, and the loggers in Oregon, they would sometimes get hurt by them. So you always are watching out for limbs that are falling down. And they're called widowmaker limbs because obviously it would knock out the logger, and then the widow resulted from that. Anyway, so we call these limbs that are dying. I mean, it almost looks like someone went through and did that to this tree, took off the old limbs that were dying, but we know that's probably not true. And that might be about it. Maybe one more. Okay. And then there's a smaller tree behind that to the right of that, just even shorter. This one has a little bit more leaves or needles on it. So both of these need to be grounded again. I'm going to take my blue brush and green. Mix some black in there and just pounce around. To make it look like it's overgrown. If it was the Pacific Northwest, it'd be blackberry bushes or rhododendrons. If it's Maine, then I think they have better undergrowth. I'm heading over to the left-hand side where we've got to take care of this little grouping right here. On this one, I did like three little shadow trees, kind of in the background. Nobody sees them. Let's see. There's a big one. And I'm going to just put a couple of baby ones just to the left, and also maybe this one's crooked because it's hanging onto the rock, the island, but it's kind of leaning out to the water. And then another one just right in here. Okay. Okay, so now that we've got our trees, it's very easy for us to find our reflections in the water. So I need to do this big one, and hopefully you left enough room for it. I didn't. So I'm just going to have the beginnings of them. But we should have 1, 2, 3, 4 trees in the reflection. So like we did before, we have our green black. I want you to make a blue black that has green in it. So we're going to start with our green. I don't know if that made sense. That probably didn't make sense. We're going to start with our green, and we're going to add some blue into it. And I want it more thick than that. So I'm going to get more paint, and I want to add a little bit of green in there. If you look at the picture, it's quite black, but it's got some jewel tone and some green tone underneath. So it's important to get that right color. Okay, so I'm going to just start here. Oh, you can't see. See, I caught myself that time. Just going to start here. And you're just going to do, now you're going to do a jaggedy tree because it's being distorted by the water. So you don't have to be exact and get every single branch. You're just getting the illusion of a tree in the reflection. Then I'm going to go to the left where my little tree is. And I might, just because I did that one hanging off into space, I might do a small reflection of him just leaning out like that. Okay. Our big one, I guess I could make it bigger. Because I didn't leave enough room, I'm not going to see the points. Hopefully you left enough room, you can see the end of your trees in the reflection. Okay. Now I'm just going to go around, since I have that beautiful dark green blue, I'm going to add kind of a reflection of the ground, where we have that kind of solid green that goes along the beach. Okay. Over on this side, I'm just going to add some lines that are black, the dark, just to give a little bit of definition. Not a lot. Okay. The other thing that you can do while we're down in the water is we can take one of these dark blues and you can do wispy lines with it to make it look like, what do you call it? Waves, current. Especially around the island, it would have a lot of movement. Okay. There's only one last thing to work on this paper, on this painting. And that's the rocks, the rock reflection. We need to kind of contour our rocks a little bit better. To do that, I'm going to go to my big brush, not my blue brush. I'm going to do the biggest of the blacks. And I'm going to just get a nice gray. Hard to tell on the silver tin how dark your paints are, but I'm just going to do lines in between the rocks. I don't know if you can see that. Let me zoom in. I'm going to contour these, so I'm giving them little angles and like a cut in between the rocks, lines and such, so forth. Just by doing that helps contour it. And then of course I've got to kind of do that the opposite in the water. And I think I need to add a lot of gray to the water, to the rocks in the water. So we'll get to that. That's better. I'm knocking the white down, that white line. I think it's a little too stark. Just taking plain water and going over it. And it's just bleeding, the black is just bleeding in there a little. So it's just knocking, it's too brilliant of a white. So I'm just knocking it down. Again, that's just with plain water. Okay. And the other thing that you can do, since the rocks are in water, these lower rock reflections, there still can be some line of blue that goes through them. And that will help identify, just reinforce the fact that they're in the water. And that's it for this one. I don't see much I want to change. Maybe add a little bit of green over here by these trees. So there's some underbrush with these trees. So take a look, be objective. So a lot of my pine tree faded. And I'm going to pause this and I'm going to let you guys. Okay, so today we are doing this this stump, I guess it is. It's a cutaway of a tree, and I thought it would be fun to do because we're into the woods with our theme, and I wanted to be able to experiment with this. So it's a lot of wet work, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a tutorial. Let me just hold up my iPad to it. Okay, so you're going to watch this in the camera. It's wet, and we just keep adding circles and layers. Then we go around with dark brown. So the middle is going to be yellow ochre. Then we're going to add burnt rust, the rust color, then brown. Then the outer rings get darker. And then the amazing thing to me is when she starts doing these little rings, it really does look like wood when she starts putting the rings in there. Okay. And then all the cracks. Fun, right? Okay. So we're going to take our plain piece of paper, and we have our, what do you call it? Our paper, our handout. And we're just going to paint. We're not going to draw. We don't need to draw anything. And what we're going to start with is yellow ochre. So this color right here, the mustard looking color. Okay. And I'm going to start at the top and just make that first cleft. And we're going to fill that all in. So we can wet it and drop color in. Okay, I hope everybody has the burnt, either raw sienna or burnt umber. It's the rust color. And that's what's going to go next. And that's going to go around the perimeter. So we're just going to drop in while this is still wet. We want to hurry and mix this color in with it. Okay. Now I'm going to get rid of my blue paintbrush, go to the other one, and go to a brown. I don't have a brown, a true brown, so I'm just going to take some of that rust color and mix it with some black. And we're just going to go right in the middle while it's still wet, dropping in a ring and watch it spread. That's the fun thing, is to watch it spread. Okay. We're going to go and let me come in a little bit so you guys can see that. And then I'm going to come in too with a little bit of just brown right around in with the rust. I come in here into the center with the brown. kind of go around. Give it kind of a center ring. And then another one in between there. Okay, that looks good. And then I'm going to start going around the outside. And with each additional layer, we're going to get a little bit darker till we're using black just by itself. So this one is still brown, but it's still got a black in there. And I'm just going to start going around the edge. Letting it bleed. Okay. We can start drawing some of these dark spots up while it's still wet, where eventually cracks will be. Okay. So now we start with the black. And we go around the edge again. Okay, I'm going to do this magic where we take this and fill this in with black. And it comes down. Looks like a huge crack, right? I think it looks so cool. Okay, so then we keep going around We can bring out some more black. Okay. So next we switch to our smallest brush and we start doing the rings. And these are a rust color, but they've got some black in them. So it's a little, it's not quite brown, still pretty rust color, but they've got, I don't know, they're darker than this rust. So then you just start in the middle. Oh, that's still really wet. Okay. I want to do a thin line. So I'm going to take my paper towel and just dab this and kind of dry it out a little bit. And then I'll be able to do this. Okay, we're going to just start doing a broken circle. And then we just keep doing rings like that. How are you guys doing? Doing okay? My lines are going to get a little bit darker as I go out here in the outer rings because they won't show up as well. So you can see that I'm drawing them just a little bit darker. Okay. The next step is to take this dark brown, this brown black, and make additional lines. We've got these big black cracks, but now we need to do little brown cracks, if that makes sense. Just do it. They don't have to go all the way out to the outer edge. They don't have to go all the way to the center. Okay. And then that might be it. Okay. So that's it.